Bon, écoutez, là, je crois qu'on a un petit peu mangé tout le temps qui nous restait pour les questions. Nous ne voulons pas faire attendre non plus le professeur Dikötter qui va nous parler directement de Hong Kong. Alors, le professeur Dikötter, c'est quelqu'un dont je vous recommande absolument les ouvrages. C'est quelqu'un qui enseigne actuellement donc à l'University of Hong Kong et qui est un éminent et très percutant spécialiste de la vie sociale et politique de la Chine contemporaine, quitte à être quelquefois assez provocateur, hein, on le lui a reproché. Il a en particulier dénoncé en fait les horreurs du régime maoïste. Il a écrit en particulier un ouvrage sur la grande famine provoquée par le grand bond en avant, décidé par Mao. Et son livre intitulé The Discourse of Race in Modern China, donc le discours de la race en Chine moderne, publié en 1992 par la Hong Kong University Press, a fait date, hein, et donc c'est véritablement cet ouvrage fondateur qui a rendu la participation du professeur Dikötter absolument indispensable dans ce colloque, hein, et de fait sa communication donc reprend le titre de son livre. Et so, hello Frank. Bon. Bien. Alors, donc je lui laisse la parole, hein, pour donc un peu moins d'une demi-heure, et à la suite de quoi nous pourrons faire une pause et changer d'amphithéâtre. Moi, je vais changer de place si je peux, parce que là, je vais vraiment me tordre le cou, sinon. So, Frank, are you going to speak English to us?
Vraiment?
Oui.
D'accord. Merci. Vous êtes très généreuse. C'est vrai que je suis provocateur. Je commencerai par dire que les Français, vous êtes très ponctuels. Par contre, je ne dénonce rien. Je ne suis pas un dénonciateur. Je ne fais qu'illustrer ce que je trouve dans les faits. Alors, pour les 20 minutes que je vais utiliser pour parler du discours de la race en Chine, je vais passer à l'anglais. Ce sera plus clair, je pense, et certainement plus facile pour moi. On gagnera beaucoup de temps. So, this was the race. I think we all know that racial theories become global in the 19th century. So the question really is, why? It seems like a rather silly question to ask. It seems evident that racial theories were exported by Europeans, very much like guns and germs. But when you think about it, it's not all that straightforward. Europeans, after all, used religion earlier on to go and exterminate or exploit or occasionally convert people to Europe. But religion wasn't universally successful, because I think we can very clearly say that race has become or was at least a universal category. So it seems to me that the key is that race is not like religion. It is seen to be based on something referred to as science. And science is a system of thought which is based on evidence and in natural laws. So when you look at the extraordinary innovations that came out of Europe in the 19th century in communication and technology, then you can see how the notion of race would have acquired that same credibility if, from the point of view of China or anywhere else, those Europeans can make guns that will kill you and can tell you ahead of time how those celestial objects will move in the sky, then surely the idea that you can divide humanity into different groups referred to as races must be true as well. In other words, science gives it that credibility. And science has two, I think, great advantages. Science is always there to explore. It evolves constantly, which means that you can phrase your racial ideology in a constantly changing language. You can talk about genetics, that's the Mendel. You can talk about DNA today. So it's very flexible. And then secondly, of course, science, like the guns that are exported by Europeans, can be turned around and used against Europeans. So in the case of China, I think there are three key points that make it, I forgot to put on my timer. I think there are three key points that facilitate its spread in the 19th century in China. One is very straightforward. It is the very meaning of the term Huang, yellow, which, as you very well know, I don't need to explain this in detail to you. Huang is one of the 5 sacred colors. It is the middle, it signifies the middle. It is the color which symbolizes the emperor. It is not just a term which has been there all along, it's changed over time as well, not least after the Manchu invasion in 1644, when a number of Ming loyalists start talking about yellow and China as the yellow center against those Manchu invaders. So a very positive term. Huang is a very positive term. Huang is not blonde, but it's also used for blonde hair. It's not blonde, it's sort of yellow one has in mind in Europe, any language. So point 2, there's a polarity between dark skin and a very fair skin. This runs all along this agricultural society where man had called, even used white powder to appear to be fairer than others. These are the 2 key points, but the third one really only appears at the third, if you wish, the third point, which makes race so easily understood in the context of China in the 19th century, is what happens in 1894, 1895. China is defeated in a war against Japan. Kang Youwei, Yang Qisao, a number of reformers turned away from the Confucian classics, tried to find the keys to wealth and power on the shores in Europe, England in particular. They read Charles Darwin, Herbert Spencer. They find many things. One of them is precisely that notion of race. They use it as a unifying concept to bring together all the subjects of the emperor, who are now portrayed as a race, a yellow race. The key point is that race is understood as an expansion of the patrilineage. The patrilineal societies, China in particular, emphasize descent through the production of sons. And all along, at least from the Song dynasty onwards, there are those who compile genealogies to make sure that they can prove that the line of descent has been pure in the sense of not mixed with either Manchus or Mongols or any other of those barbarian tribes who occasionally come and invade the Middle Kingdom. Now, the key point is that these reformers see race as a gigantic lineage, a huge patrilineage, but that doesn't go back to Kong or Sun or Wang or any one of those lineages, but goes all the way back to the mythical figure called the Yellow Emperor. In other words, people submitted to the emperor are hierarchies, reformers like coming your way really talk in terms of superior races, inferior races. I'll give you one quotation, I'll give you a couple of quotations, 3 if I have time. Here's one from Tang. Yellow and white are wise, red and black are stupid. Yellow and white are rulers, red and black are slaves. Yellow and white are united, red and black are scattered. You can find endless quotations if you make your way through the writings of these reformers. All very interesting. I did mention Charles Darwin. There are 2 differences, and I think the differences count all the way till today. One is that Charles Darwin is really interested in competition between individuals within what he considers to be a species, whereas the reformers in China really emphasize competition between groups, these groups being portrayed, of course, as races, quote unquote. Race, yellow race fighting the white race, black race, red race, brown race, generally 5 races, of course, from Blumenbach. The second difference is that Darwin, neo-Darwinism in particular, sees evolution as a branching process, a tree upside down with the roots in the air, whereas here the reformers and others, I should say, afterwards, all the way through the Republican era up until 1949, very much emphasized neo-Lamarckism, which you may have heard of. France as the home of neo-Lamarckism, namely the idea that evolution can be influenced by political, social, cultural changes, and this acquired characteristic can be passed on to the next generation. In other words, the race can be improved. There's hope there in the future. Now, I must move on from the reformers to the revolutionaries. The revolutionaries are not too keen on the Manchus. And in resonance with other political revolutions in Europe, 1789, 1848, they see the Manchus as an inferior race. These are the revolutionaries. And in the 19th century. I'll say one thing in French. Puisque vous êtes en France et nous parlons de 1789, je me permets de vous rappeler que la DCS voyait donc la noblesse comme une race à part entière qui devait être portée hors de France, et voulait utiliser des singes encadrés par des Africains pour entreprendre des travaux manuels difficiles. Donc les Africains, parce qu'ils étaient plus près des singes. C'est la DCS. Dans liberty and equality. But these 2 notions don't go together all that well. 1911, les révolutionnaires canadiens, l'Empire, sorry, I should speak in English. The millennial empire vanishes in 1911, but not without a little genocide. Tens of thousands of Manchus are killed in the streets, according to criteria which are entirely, as you can well imagine, with race, subjective. But once the genocide is over, of course, the Republic of China starts. The key points here are, I think, two key points. One, that the notion of race becomes a daily category of analysis. It's not just a few scholars interested in politics who understand and participate in racial categories, racial theories. You can find race expounded in textbooks used in primary school. So I'll give you here a little reading from a primary school textbook from 1920. I quote, "Mankind is divided into 5 races. The yellow and white races are relatively strong and intelligent. Because the other races are feeble and stupid, they are being exterminated by the white race. Only the yellow race competes with the white race." this so-called evolution, and then quotations. So it's really quite crude. That's at the school level, and I realize that everybody goes to primary school in the Republic of China. Nonetheless, it indicates that it's a very common, it has become a very common sense category. Higher up, tens of thousands of students go abroad, and many of them pursue science, and they publish. They publish just like their peers in Europe and in the United States and elsewhere on their racial theories, in studies in genetics, in craniology, in bone structure. Hair seems to absolutely fascinate Chinese scientists. And these are not just studies published in Chinese. Li Qi examines the skulls and bones of thousands of people to publish a book on the formation of the Chinese race with Harvard University Press, showing that somehow all of these Chinese people are descended from the yellow emperor, but have been more or less contaminated by various invasions from barbarian tribes. So a very rich scientific literature. I would say, if anything, what is remarkable about racial theories in the Republican era, 1911, followed the Empire, 1949, communist conquest, I will come to that in a moment, what is so remarkable is that very few people, very few scholars actually oppose the notion of race. You've got to remember Franz Boas, the anthropologist who showed that a stone of flexible and cannot be used to construct racial categories. He published his work in 1912, very early onwards. So in the case of the Republic of China, there is a historian, who very much opposes the use of racial categories, and a Democrat, Zhang Junmai, who also writes against the inclusion of blood in the description of the Chinese nation. These are two quite exceptional voices. For the greatest part, in China happily go along with racial themes, including the hierarchy that is assumed to exist within these different groups referred to as races. 1949, I'll be very quick. Well, I won't be quick. I still have a few minutes. I'll be quick about the Mao period. 1949, class is what matters. Genetics is denounced as a bourgeois science. Racism seen as a vile ideology developed by European imperialists. Anthropology is seen as a sort of anthropology, sociology, departments banned, also bourgeois. But underneath, of course, very much the same principle. Namely, the idea that the Chinese, referred to as Han, this is the contribution of the revolutionaries. They described what they thought were the Chinese, as opposed to the mentioned as Han. This is taken on board by the communists who portray the vast majority of people inside the People's Republic of China as Han, and then describe other peoples as minorities, including Tibetans and Uyghurs, who, of course, were a majority in their own homelands. The communists, in fact, faced the same geopolitical challenge that the politicians of the Republic of China faced, including Sun Yat-sen and Chiang Kai-shek. And the difficulty is that they had inherited the boundaries of the empire, but they had no desire to decolonize. So to put it slightly bluntly, China to this day is an empire that has yet to decolonize. And how do you justify keeping those boundaries that go back to the Qing Empire. But you do it by portraying the people inside that political entity as being somehow organically united. And the term that was used by Sun Yat-sen and Chiang Kai-shek and later on by the communists is 中华民族, the idea that somehow the Uyghurs and Tibetans are part of a greater of that whole, will merge into that, merge into that organic unity. So minorities seem to be evolutionary as evolved, in need of political guidance from the superior Han, the politically, culturally superior Han. This is the Mao era. Now, to say a few things about what happens from 78, 79 onwards, more or less to this day. What happens, of course, is that science is rehabilitated. You can do Mendelian genetics, you can pursue biological science, you can publish on minorities and use biology. And what is so remarkable is the explosion in studies from the 1980s onwards to this day, maybe. 1980s, 1990s in particular, the explosion of studies that attempt to measure these minorities, Tibetans, Uyghurs, others, and then establish the distance from the so-called Han. And the result is invariably the same, whether they measure genetic distance, or dermatographics, or skulls, or ears, or noses, or entire bodies. The result is always the same. These minorities are very close to the Han and extremely distant genetically, morphologically, serologically from all the people on the other side of the border of the People's Republic of China. In other words, they're merging into that organic Zhonghuaism. Very quickly, a few examples. I will be 3 more minutes, if that. There's one wonderful man called Zhang Zhenbiao. Many of you heard of him, but he was the head of a very important publication called Acta Anthropologica Sinica, which is the flagship publication when it comes to anthropology. And he, among many others, spent his career measuring all these minorities. And his conclusion is, I quote, it's true, it's not true. In conclusion, I quote, as demonstrated by the results of an investigation into the special characteristics of the heads and faces of contemporary Tibetans, their heads and faces are fundamentally similar to those of various other nationalities of our country. It is beyond doubt that the Tibetans and the other nationalities of our country descend from a common origin and belong to the same East Asian type of yellow race. You couldn't be more clear. Other example, very quickly, are studies in serology and genetic distance. Here you have a number of people who come very close in the 1980s and 90s to supporting a theory of polygenesis. The idea that somehow the evolution of the so-called yellow race has absolutely nothing to do with anything coming from Africa. This is also supported, and this is my 3rd example, in studies to do with paleoanthropology. Very interesting that a man called Wu Kang, one of the greatest paleoanthropologists in China, who comes very close to saying that the origins of the so-called yellow race and people in China today have nothing to do with common descent from Africa or anywhere else. Well, let me conclude. I've had exactly 20 minutes, I think. Let me conclude. The issue is as follows. The Republic in 1912 and the People's Republic in 1949 is an empire, Well, let me make it even more clear. China today is an empire that pretends to be a people's republic. And this people's republic pretends to be a modern nation state, which in turn pretends to be based on an organic entity called Zhonghua-Minzu. Is based on the idea that the political boundaries of the PRC, as you go around that country, correspond roughly to an underlying organic entity dominated by the Han, into which minorities are fusing to create what will be a great biological entity. That's the end of my talk. Thank you.
So, merci, professeur Dikötter. Je persiste et signe les termes de ma présentation. C'était éminent, percutant et quand même un brin provocateur. La citation de l'abbé Sieyès nous rappelle que la France se targue d'être le pays des droits de l'homme. Et là aussi, je pense que c'est une formule à revoir. Hein. Et donc, ça nous rappelle aussi que vous avez cité donc un manuel d'école primaire de la période républicaine chinoise et où persistent effectivement en fait ces schémas raciaux. Et nous avons la même chose dans notre Troisième République, même sous l'influence de Jules Ferry. Hein. Donc il faut toujours balayer devant sa porte avant de pointer le doigt sur quelqu'un d'autre. Hein. Ça, c'est un premier principe à respecter. Et donc, vraiment, je pense que nous pouvons vous remercier d'avoir accepté de nous parler de Hong Kong. Il commence à être très tard pour vous. Non, ça va. Bon. Et vraiment, là, je crois que ça nous a quand même posé les idées, justement, pour... on pourrait dire que nous avons entendu une sorte de keynote speech, hein, et c'est bien l'intention que nous avions en vous invitant. On aurait préféré que vous soyez avec nous ici au Collège de France, mais bon, ça n'a pas pu se faire. Mais en tout cas, voilà, vous avez une idée de comment dire, la clarté, la précision et la concision du propos du professeur Dikötter qui devrait vous encourager à lire son travail. Donc maintenant, oui, Michel Vieviorca voudrait vous poser une question. Ouais.
Enfin, c'est un commentaire pour vous remercier profondément, parce que vous avez, entre autres choses, introduit une idée qui n'est pas banale, qui est l'idée que, s'agissant des minorités en Chine, il s'agit non pas de dire qu'ils sont une race différente, mais pour mieux les persécuter, de dire qu'ils sont presque la même race. Ça n'est pas banal. Hein. On développe un racisme à l'envers, en quelque sorte, pour mieux persécuter une minorité. Et donc, cette idée me fait beaucoup gamberger. Voilà, je voulais vous remercier.
C'est en fait la principale différence entre les théories de race en Chine et en Europe. C'est que les Européens sont angoissés par l'idée d'assimilation, certainement lorsqu'ils vont coloniser ailleurs. Alors qu'en Chine, c'est le contraire. La Chine colonise. Il n'y a pas de colonisation outre-mer, on colonise autour, si vous voulez, de la Chine proprement dite. Et elle n'a pas peur du tout de la colonisation. Colonisation veut dire envoyer des colons. C'est ce que font les communistes de manière extrêmement efficace pour le Tibet et plus encore pour le Xinjiang. Donc des millions de personnes qui sont envoyées de la Chine, proprement dit, au Xinjiang. C'est l'exemple le plus réussi de la colonisation au XXe siècle. C'est le Xinjiang. Aucune peur de l'assimilation, au contraire. Qui va s'assimiler? Qui va devenir, si vous voulez, de manière organique, qui va devenir une partie intégrale de ce Chong, ce sont les Ouïghours, les Tibétains et tous les autres, désignés comme minorité entre guillemets. Ça contraste énormément avec quoi.
Alors, je voudrais ajouter un mot, si vous m'y autorisez. Ça fait quand même un peu penser à un autre empire, qui est l'empire russe, avec l'Ukraine. On détruit l'Ukraine parce qu'ils sont comme nous, et non pas parce qu'ils sont différents. Et donc, il y a quand même un phénomène, un type de phénomène qui renvoie à l'idée d'empire, dans ce que vous nous proposez.
Oui, absolument. Je dirais que la principale différence, d'après ce que j'ai compris de l'Union soviétique, vous avez bien souligné que l'Union Staline en particulier introduit cette notion de chanson de milieu, en chinois évidemment. Mais les Russes les soviétiques ont quand même, comment dire, ils entrevoient quand même une fédération, une union des républiques socialistes. Alors qu'on sait qu'il est de la Chine pop, en 1949, il s'agit d'éradiquer toutes ces différences. Il y a des zones qu'on dit autonomes. Ce dessus, ça ne veut rien dire. C'est plutôt diviser, partager, pour mieux assimiler. Donc, ce n'est pas tout à fait comme l'Union soviétique. Et de nouveau, je pense pour la même raison, c'est que les Han, entre guillemets, se voient, il faut bien comprendre que le Han est une invention moderne, il n'y a pas de Han. Les Han, entre guillemets, sont une énorme majorité. Ils n'ont pas peur de la différence, au contraire.
Oui, je traduis Chine pop. C'est un terme affectueux pour désigner la Chine populaire. Hein. Bon, voilà. D'autre part, oui, je remercie le professeur Dikötter d'avoir introduit finalement le propos que nous allons entendre maintenant de Jean-Jacques Hublin, donc paléo-anthropologue, qui va justement nous parler effectivement de ce... La Chine, c'est comme un espèce d'énorme ventre qui est capable d'assimiler beaucoup de choses. Hein, donc, elle a cette capacité d'absorption et de digestion. Hein, c'est un vrai estomac de requin. Hein, bon, mais là, il y a quand même quelque chose, enfin, qui se présente comme une ligne de démarcation. C'est-à-dire, je disais tout à l'heure que actuellement, il y a un discours qui accompagne en fait la présence de la Chine en Afrique. Hein, mais là, est-ce que la Chine peut aller jusqu'à assimiler voilà, l'Afrique du point de vue racial. Voilà, ça c'est le problème qu'on va aborder maintenant. Nous reprenons les travaux donc à 11h pile dans l'amphithéâtre Alvax.